I'm Pamela Brown in Washington. Welcome to our viewers in the United States and around the world. You're in the CNN newsroom on this Sunday evening, and we share some disturbing new information just into CNN with you tonight. The brother of a Secret Service agent is facing 5 charges connected to his alleged role in this month's violent insurrection at the U.S. Capitol. Let's go straight to CNN. Shimon Prokupecz for more. So what more do we know about the Secret Service agent and his brother who has been charged now?
So his brother, who had nothing to do with this incident, obviously, on the Capitol, his name is Preston Fairlem. He once actually led Michelle Obama's security details, a Secret Service agent, as you said, who once led Michelle Obama's security details. She even mentions him in her memoir, Becoming. She talks about him briefly in the book. She also attended a memorial service for their father, for the Fairlam's family. The father, who was a police officer and died in a motorcycle accident. Now, as to Scott Fairlem, who's charged for his participation in the Capitol insurrection, what's really interesting, Pam, is that he's actually, one of the charges that he's facing is assault on a police officer. He's captured on video that the FBI now has, and they say that on that video you see him pushing and shoving and hitting a police officer. He is the brother of this Secret Service agent, Preston Fairlem III. A lawyer who represents Scott Fairlem says that the brother knew nothing about this, didn't even know that he was coming here. So they're saying that the brother had nothing to do with this, obviously. But certainly disturbing details here when you learn of this man's connections to law enforcement and what he is charged with here now.
Yeah, what he's charged with against a police officer. Very disturbing. Shimon Prokupecz, thanks for bringing us this breaking news. And also breaking this hour, CNN has learned that former Trump White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders will announce Monday that she will run for governor of Arkansas. The story was first reported by the Washington Post, and I'm joined now by Washington Post political investigations reporter and CNN political analyst Josh Dawsey. Hi, Josh. Nice to have you on. Tell us more about this news that you broke.
Hi, Pamela. Yes, Sarah has been back in Arkansas for some time, plotting to run for governor. And we've learned this weekend that she will announce tomorrow that she's running for governor of Arkansas. Obviously, she was the president's press secretary, former Governor Mike Huckabee's daughter, a longtime political operative. And she will announce tomorrow via video that she's planning to post in the morning that she will be a candidate for governor of Arkansas.
And I remember we were both covering the White House at the time when she left. The speculation was that she would take this move. She would run for governor of Arkansas. As you pointed out, her father was the governor between 1996 and 2000. As President Trump's former press secretary, how much do you think that helps her in the state? How popular is she there?
Well, Sarah remains popular. Sarah Sanders remains popular in Arkansas, and the president's numbers still remain good there in the state as well. One of the upsides that she has there is that she's so closely linked to the president. And in the Republican primary against others there, she thinks she will do quite well. Sarah has been plotting for some time to run for governor. She left back in 2018, as you know, as press secretary of the White House, and has not been one of those folks, or I guess 19, to distance herself from the president. She's still been in his orbit, talking to him regularly, and she's planning to run.
You would imagine, you have to wonder if we would get a tweet from the president if he still had access to his Twitter right now. But what do you think? You think somehow we'll hear from him? He'll weigh in?
I don't know, but I know, Pamela, that she still remains close to him. She speaks to him fairly regularly, and she was a press secretary that folks in his orbit thought did a good job as press secretary. She obviously was very famous from her role there, and she's well known back in Arkansas from her time as being, the daughter of the governor there, Mike Huckabee. Sarah is someone who people see in Arkansas as quite a formidable candidate. She will obviously have to answer for many of the things he said and did, and her role as press secretary there, but she's putting out a video in the morning and she's ready to go.
All right, Josh Dawsey, thank you very much for bringing us the latest on that front.
Thank you very much.
Well, as America surpasses an appalling new benchmark, more than 25 million people infected with coronavirus, you have to wonder where we might be right now if the Trump administration had taken the science more seriously. Instead, former White House coronavirus response coordinator Dr. Debra Burks says there were deliberate attempts to placate the former president.
I saw the president presenting graphs that I never made. So I know that someone out there or someone inside was creating a parallel set of data and graphics that were shown to the president. I know what I sent up, and I know that what was in his hands was different from that. You can't do that. You have to use the entire database. To this day, I don't know.
And joining me now with more is CNN medical analyst Dr. Jonathan Reiner, professor of medicine at George Washington University. Dr. Reiner, good to see you. Earlier, you were on with our CNN's Ana Cabrera and had some very harsh words about Dr. Burks. You called her complicit in the coronavirus disaster here in the U.S. Why do you think that?
Hi, Pamela. Look, it's been said that the first casualty of war is the truth. And what's clear now is the first casualty in this horrible pandemic in the United States was the truth. The American public was purposefully and repeatedly lied to. The president admitted this to Bob Woodward. We heard this today from Debra Burks. But when I hear Dr. Burks, who I have tried to give the benefit of the doubt to for a long time because of her many years of distinguished service, particularly in her work with the global AIDS crisis over many years. But when I hear her talk about parallel data streams, that has a horrible resonance to alternative facts. And the public was told this was a hoax. The pandemic would just blow away. It would go away when it got warmer. You could wear a mask, maybe not wear a mask. The president's not going to wear a mask. States should open quickly. Then they brought in a radiologist who pushed this herd immunity nonsense. And all along, we know that Dr. Burks knew that what the public was being told was garbage, and she stayed silent. That makes her complicit. If the public knew in March, when she was sort of boasting about the president's prowess to synthesize data because he's a businessman, if the public knew how serious this was, perhaps the public would have taken this more seriously and masked up. And perhaps, 250,000 people in this country who are dead now might still be alive. So silence equals complicity. She doesn't get off.
Well, when you compare how Dr. Fauci responded to the White House attempts to downplay the severity of the pandemic, what did he do correctly? I mean, we know he managed to disagree with Donald Trump, and he still kept his job. What do you think about that?
I think when Dr. Fauci was asked direct questions, he gave direct answers. The problem with Dr. Fauci is that he was basically muzzled for many months, prohibited from doing media interviews. Dr. Burks had an opportunity to stand up and refute these so-called, quote, parallel data streams, but decided not to do that. Perhaps she felt that she could be more effective from within the administration than if she stood up and left. But the public would have taken her seriously if she told the public how serious the pandemic was. Early on, very early on in the pandemic, Dr. Nancy Messonnier, who was the head of the respiratory and immunization section at CDC, told the public that the virus was going to be bad, there was going to be community spread, and they should get ready for disruptions. She told that to the public when there were only 14 cases of the coronavirus in the United States, and she was never heard from again. So what the public needed to know was the truth. Dr. Burks knew the truth, but she did not stand up and tell everyone in a loud and clear voice.
I want to ask you about the vaccine rollout. That is on a lot of people's minds as we all try to get back to normal. I had a doctor on earlier, Dr. Celine Gallender, who said she was predicting midsummer to late summer before healthy Americans would be able to be vaccinated. Do you agree with that timeline? And what would you say is the biggest issue with this rollout right now? I think people are just confused as to what the deal is.
Well, first of all, the Biden administration is placing a ton of resources on getting vaccine into arms. It doesn't matter if we have vaccines if they don't become vaccinations. And the Biden administration, I do believe, understands this. The problem is the Biden administration's goal of 1 million shots a day for 100 days is basically what we're doing now. It would be as if the Biden administration came out and said that the goal for the administration should be to get the employment rate to about 6.5%, unemployment rate to about 6.5%. Well, people would say, well, that's where it is now. What kind of a goal is that? Mm-hmm. So we need to do better than 1 million shots per day. Look, most of the shots we're giving now are new shots. But as we go forward, more and more shots every day will be the second vaccinations. So the number of new vaccinations is going to start to drop until we get to a point in the not too distant future where every day the shots that are given are 50% follow-up and 50% new vaccinations. We need to do better. We need to vaccinate about 2 million people a day. That should be the goal. We can do that. The manufacturers are delivering every week somewhere between 12 and 18 million doses of the vaccine, but we're barely administering, 8 to 9 million doses. We should deliver every dose of vaccine that is given every week. That is delivered every week.
It's so confusing. I think people hear that and it's so confusing because there's so much demand, right? I mean, you're like, wait a second, there's just all of this vaccine, these doses of that vaccine that are just sitting there and they're not being used. Right. I think it was at last check around 21 million had been administered and there were 40 million altogether that had been administered. So, all right, Dr. Jonathan Reiner, thank you for coming on. We appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.